Rashid. Together with me today is my friend Siti Madiha Tasnim binti Suhaimi. So we are going to do our online presentation to you with regard to question number 3 on the topic of documentary evidence. By the way, we are from Tutor Group Tuesday 3 to 4 p.m. Okay, so let's go to the first, the question first. So the question mentioned that on the 10th September 2016, a police ambush party raided an apartment in Jalan John, Kuala Lumpur, seizing an assortment of multicolored pills believed to be ecstasy and heroin worth 20 million, as well as drug processing and packaging equipment. And it was suspected that the apartment was used as drug laboratory. 2 suspects who happened to be husband and wife were arrested. So there are a few items that were obtained during the course of investigation. Among them are first, certified true copy of strata title of the apartment. Secondly, the photocopy of marriage certificate of the suspect. And thirdly, a photocopy of diary. However, that diary shortly after the seizure was destroyed while in the police custody when a fire broke out in Kuala Lumpur Police Station. Therefore, we are required to do 2 things. First is with regard to the requirements for the admissibility of each of those items, and as well as to discuss the evidential issue arising with respect to each one of them. So I will do the first part, which is about the requirements for the admissibility of each of those items. So when we talk about the requirement of admissibility of a documentary evidence, there are 2 important steps to be followed. So the first step is with regard to the classification. We need to classify whether the document is a public document or a private document. And the second step is to know what is the method of proving the content of the document. It can be either primary evidence or secondary evidence. Primary evidence is basically the original document being produced, while secondary evidence is other than the primary evidence. Okay, so let's move on to the first document that was obtained, which is certified true copy of strata title of the apartment. So the first step is to identify whether this strata title is a public or private document. So under section 74 subsection B of the Evidence Act, strata title is a public document. This is because it mentioned under paragraph B, which is public records kept in Malaysia or private document. So actually strata title is a originally is a private document, but it is kept in the record by the government. Therefore, it falls under the public document. Okay, so moving on to the methods of proving this documentary evidence, which is the general rule is that we opt for the best evidence rule, which means that we must produce the primary evidence only if there is no primary evidence and we have the legal foundation, then we can tender the secondary evidence. This is mentioned in the section 64 of the Evidence Act. However, in the case of Tok Siew Ling and another in the year 2014, the court held that where the document is a public document, so the best evidence rule is inapplicable and that secondary evidence may be adduced. Therefore, we must look first whether the document is a public or private document. So, focusing on the facts itself, the certified true copy of the strata title of the apartment itself, the certified true copy, is a secondary evidence as it is mentioned under section 63 subsection A of the Evidence Act. So, question now is that whether the certified true copy of strata title of the apartment is admissible to be tendered as evidence since it is a secondary evidence. So, since the strata title we have identified earlier, it is a public document, but it is a certified true copy, therefore it falls under section 65 subsection 1, E and F. So, if we refer to section 65, subsection 1E and F, it mentioned that the secondary evidence may be given of the existence, condition or content of a document admissible in evidence when the original is a public document within the meaning of section 74 or whether it is a certified copy. Therefore, in our situation, it is a certified true copy of strata title, which means that it is a public document, as well as it falls under section 65 which means that we have the legal foundation to tender the strata title, the certified true copy of strata title as a secondary evidence. And when we read section 65 subsection 1E and F, we must read together with section 77 and section 79, which mention that copies certified may be produced to prove the content of the public document, as well as to presume the genuineness of the document. Therefore, for the conclusion of the first item that has been found, though the strata title is a secondary evidence as it is certified true copy, but we can tender it as a secondary evidence without laying a legal foundation, since it is a public document. Therefore, it is admissible in the court. So moving on to the second items that was obtained, which is photocopy of marriage certificate of the suspect. So as usual, the first step is to classify it first, whether it is a public or private document. So marriage certificate is a private document mentioned under section 75. Under section 75, it doesn't mention that it is a private, marriage certificate is a private document. However, any documents other than which falls under section 74 will falls under section 75, which is to become a private document. So alright, so moving on to the methods of proving this marriage certificate. So based on the question, it is a photocopy of a marriage certificate. So it is photocopy. So as I have mentioned earlier, the general is that to tender the primary evidence, which is the original document. However, in this case, it is a photocopy in the form of photocopy. Therefore, it falls under the secondary evidence under section 63 subsection B, which mentioned that secondary evidence includes copies made from the original by mechanical process. It means that the document is being photocopied by a photocopy machine. Okay, so the question now is that since it is a secondary evidence, whether we can tender it, whether it is admissible as an evidence in the court. So therefore, if we look to the conditions for a secondary evidence to be tendered in court, it must fall under any one of the legal foundation mentioned under section 65 of the Evidence Act. However, for marriage certificate, a photocopy marriage certificate does not fall under any of these legal foundation mentioned under section 65. Therefore, the conclusion is that it cannot be tendered in court as it would not be admissible. Okay, lastly is with regard to the photocopy of a diary. This diary, however, shortly was destroyed while in police custody when a fire broke out in Kuala Lumpur police station. So first step, we need to classify whether the diary is a public or a private document. So diary, as we mentioned earlier, we can refer to section 75. It is a private document because it does not fall under section 74. Therefore, it falls under section 75. Okay. So with regard to the methods of proving this diary, whether it is a primary or secondary, it mentioned in the facts that it is a photocopy of a diary. Therefore, it falls under section 63 subsection B, and we can also refer to the illustration B to section 63, which mentioned that any documents which has been photocopied by a photocopy machine falls under secondary evidence. So whether this photocopy or whether this secondary evidence can be admissible in court as an evidence, we must look to the exception mentioned under section 65 subsection 1C, where section 65 subsection 1C mentioned that the secondary evidence may be admissible when the original has been destroyed or lost. So back to our facts, this photocopy of a diary, actually it becomes a photocopy of diary because it was destroyed when in police custody because of a fire. Therefore, we can apply the exception under section 65 subsection 1C. So though it is a secondary evidence, but it falls under one of the legal foundation mentioned in section 65, therefore it will be admissible as an evidence in court, the photocopy of a diary. So okay, this is additional information. When we discuss about section 65 subsection 1c, there are conditions to be applicable in order for us to use this subsection. First is where there must be a diligent search. However, there must be a diligent search only when the document was lost. But in our situation, the document, the diary was destroyed by fire. Therefore, we cannot do any diligent search to get back the original diary. Therefore, this condition does not apply. As a conclusion, for photocopy of a diary, it is admissible in court as a secondary evidence, as it falls under the legal foundation provided under section 65 subsection 1c. Alright, that's all for my part.